Hi Gary, thanks very much for coming today to have a chat with us about planning funerals. So I have a few questions, if that's
Sure.
okay?
No problem whatsoever.
Okay. So can we start with, so what is a funeral?
Well, it really depends on the actual person and their cultural norms because there's so many variations in that. But effectively, a funeral is a ceremony that's held shortly after a person's death, usually ending in some sort of committal, whether that's burial or cremation or something like that.
So is it normal to plan ahead for your funeral?
Well, more and more people are actually wanting to plan for their funeral because they don't want to leave a burden on their family, which is the key thing, and not to leave that financial burden that people often think they're going to have on their families. But by making your wishes known, it reduces the possibilities of somebody not getting it right. And it also reduces the potential, sadly, as we all know at funeral times, of family fallouts and disagreements about what could happen or should happen. You don't necessarily need to engage a funeral director. However, there are a number of legal requirements that have to be followed. Well, I think the first thing you're going to have to think through for yourself is what do you want to happen to your remains once you're no longer here? And currently we have basically two options.
Okay.
Do you want to be buried or do you want to have cremation?
Right.
Those are the two main options.
What about donating to science? Could I do that?
Again, there is a possibility of donating to science, and there's only one place that can be happening here within NI, and that's through the Department of Anatomy at Queen's University Belfast. However, even though that may be your wish, when you get to that time, you really do need to have a plan B in place because a vast majority of people who've opted for that do not have their bodies accepted for that. There's nowhere in Northern Ireland where there's a natural burial ground. So there's a lot of things just to think through when you're making choices about where do I want to be buried.
Okay.
There are normally a range of coffins that are available for people to choose. So you could have, for example, a nicely carved coffin. You could get one with your favourite football team wrapped around it, like sometimes you get with cars and vehicles like that there. There are so many different choices, and again, your FD will be able to help you with that and make those choices as you come along. They'll probably even be able to take you and show you some. You don't necessarily have to have a religious service. Maybe there's a particular piece of poetry or prose that you would love to be read. Maybe you'll say, well, actually, I don't want it to be a drear place. I want everybody to wear yellow ties or pink bows in their hair. So you could have the service, obviously, within the funeral director's premises if it's large enough. You could have it within a church. We have conducted some in hotels.
Right.
It is up to the person to
Okay.
make those wishes, and then we will try to facilitate that for you.
Just what age or stage do you think someone should start thinking about talking to a funeral director?
I think most people think it's elderly.
Right.
I would say it's any stage of life. Not to be morbid, but just as a factor of life. It's part of the circle of life, as the Lion King reminds us along the way.
Well, thanks, Gary, actually, because that's a lot of things I maybe hadn't thought about. But it is a lot of things. So if you're starting to think about things or plan things now, what would you advise? Where would you start? What would you say to people?
I think I want to know about what do I want, and as such, start writing it down. And having got that sort of half clarified in my head, then go and talk to my family about it. Let them know what I'm thinking, because they need to be involved in all of this. Write it down. It means everybody knows what's happening. So you're not having ambiguity, and it means that your wishes are met.